The next area is probably one of the areas I think is, so to speak, sometimes the elephant in the room. We know about the operating budget. We're keenly aware of what's going on. We know more and more now what it takes if you live in a homeowners association to keep up with your capital expenses just in your own homeowners. But what are we doing about the building fund? There's a couple of things we've done of recent that I think are important to note, and then I want to talk about some things long term. Number one, we do, and you've heard this before, have an $11 million note that we've recently, just this last January, were able to refinance from 6.2% to 5%. That's going to bring our monthly mortgage payments down quite a bit to about $66,000 when we're paying about $76,000. So we're excited about having a little easier go on that mortgage now that it's been refinanced. But when you hear of that operating budget of 6.2, you hear that the capital reserve funding that we need to set aside of $455,000, there is this other thing with the building the future that we still not paid off. We've talked about that. We've even challenged the congregation this last year about the debt service, and you hear that even after sharing that with the congregation, we're still behind in not being able to pay the debt service. Now, we have set cash aside, as he shared, and we have cash on hand of $1.7 million just in case either that rainy day or just in case it even gets worse. So until we get to that next capital campaign, that we have reserves to fall back on. And I think that's a really important point. But if you're reading between the lines, I think it's inevitable. We will have a capital campaign. So here's what we're doing right now. We have a task force, mostly people sitting on session, myself and Rich and some others as well, some great lay people who have some experience in this area. And what we are doing is looking into things like the timing of the capital campaign, looking into the goals and the vision for the capital campaign, looking at economics, how our membership has changed from 10 years ago. It's actually, I think, now 12 years ago when we started to now. And one of the things we'll be doing is getting some focus group feedback, hearing what you have to say about it, because we want to be effective and compelling in another capital campaign, but we feel like we need to be really smart going through this. And let's face it, there's some things in front of us that we're still working through. So the process for the next capital campaign is this task force is kind of going underground, working in a lot of this. You may see them come up and be asked to be a part of a focus group. After a certain length of time, they will go back to session with a recommendation. Session will approve that recommendation. Then I'm sure we'll probably even have a town hall meeting and get ready to launch and describe more how we're going to go about attacking this $11 million mortgage that we have. The last slide that I have is basically something that I think is really important in the sense that, we've covered a lot of financial details. And I'm sure there's some of you sitting down, what did they say? What's going on? Getting a full picture of what it takes to fund the mission of this church, I hope you got at least a better picture tonight than you had before. I think one of the things that we've been kicking ourselves in the leadership core team and then on session in the last 6 months is as we started to learn what it takes to run the mission of this church, the beautiful facilities, the ministry and mission that we're doing, some of the debt that we still have, we realized what we report on the back of a highlights is really just a fraction of the total picture. Other part of the picture is that we're going to need more families to participate in the process. And this slide tells us a little bit about that. I will tell you from my standpoint, there's nothing more exciting than seeing people take hold and jump in with the mission of the church. There's some facts and figures I get to see that I know most other people don't. One of the facts that I just love seeing this year, the amount of families between 30 and 55 has increased more than any other group. And when I look around to this group, I think a lot of you need to hear that we're just not growing in attendance. 8% this year, 11% last year. But people are helping to pave the way. Specifically, when I look at some of the donors that really helped us in this December when we asked to give big, and they did in order to do what we did. Again, it's a lot of these next generation families. There's some sad stories about some of the generation that we're losing. There's a dear woman that every year would come to this church and the last day give us a check of significant means. And this year she's in the hospital. And it was so nice to see Leah be able to care for her while about 2 or 3 people of the same means in their 40s and 50s came and gave the same kind of check. And then to see on top of that, so many in this church are still the widow mites giving in such a powerful way. I got to tell you, I got a great seat for what I get to see, and it's a beautiful thing. There's another story that I have to tell you that warmed my heart this year, that a gentleman that I talked to that helped this church 25 years ago to help us grow this particular street to expand our campus on St. Andrews wanted us to do more for our shut-ins. And as you know, this last year, our deacons worked in a ministry called Homebound, more than, I think, doubling, maybe tripling the amount of people we reach with just not a CD, but a DVD player and a DVD, because this gentleman who helped expand this campus 25 years ago wanted to be useful and wanted to help people that were homebound couldn't get here. There is nothing more exciting than seeing the power of people that want to be useful for the mission of Jesus Christ. And one of the things I see when I see this graph up here, I still know we got a ways to go. I know that it's tough. I know that we're losing some saints in our church. That is just sad. But I think what would make them happier more than anything else is see that legacy carried on. And I will tell you that with Rich and now with Bruce joining our team, I'm so excited for the challenge of our congregation to move in this area of what we call unrestrained generosity, to be able to see the new mission of the church take root in so many different areas. Some of the things that Mike and I pledge to you, and Rich, you come on up and help us questions, is we want to be more transparent, as you could see from tonight. We want to give you probably an increased level of detail, maybe more detail than you want at times, nights like tonight. And I'm hoping even the reports that you see here, anything that you want to access to see. Tonight I got to have dinner and sat next to a new family from the church that has been with us recently and friends to someone in the church for over 50 years. And one of the first comments in coming tonight, they're coming from another church that lacked the same level of disclosure. And I think we know who we're talking about, and the tough things are going on here. We are trying to be as transparent as we can. We're going to need more of you to participate. And I have to tell you, when you catch on, there's nothing more exciting than seeing how God's going to use us.